SPY is still closing above this very important blue trend line. The NASDAQ is still holding up very nicely near its all-time highs. And the IWM bounced off of support today. So in today's video, we're going to go in depth about these indices. We're going to talk about the dollar, the bonds, the crypto markets, and of course, I'm going to go over all of the stocks you guys wanted me to do technical analysis on. So without further ado, let's get right into it. But first, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you like the information that I'm giving you guys. If you like all of the content that I provide, please make sure to subscribe and put on bell notifications. All right, so without further ado, let's get right into it. That had to be the best introduction that I've ever done in my life. That was good. Good job, Hamid. Anyway, all right, so the SPY, as we can see, we're trading above this blue level of resistance, okay? And it never traded and closed above this level for more than one day in a row. Now we can see that it's starting to comfortably trade above it, okay? So now the level that we need to sustain to remain above this level for tomorrow is going to be 427.80. So the SPY needs to stay above 427.80 for us to remain above this level. And if we can start to consolidate above this level and, then find support, that would be very, very good for the overall market. So now real quick, I want to show you guys something a bit different than I normally do. So, usually I say, the MACD, when it's very, very above the yellow line, and then it's overbought. So it means that it's somewhat bearish, right? Well, something that you might be hearing from other people is that, there's lots of negative divergence on the MACD and the RSI. And negative divergence usually points to a bearish signal. That is a bad thing when there is negative divergence. All right. I can go into detail on what negative divergence is, but it's basically when the MACD is pointing downward, but the price is going upward. That means that there's a losing steam in the upward movement. So eventually the price is going to collapse. But we've been having negative divergence for the past year. Okay. So if the price was going to fall and if negative divergence actually mattered, price would have fell all throughout this entire year. We would have collapsed very, very heavily, but we didn't. The reason for that is because there's hundreds of billions of dollars being funneled into the market every month. And there's so much money being printed that negative divergence doesn't mean anything. It meant something years ago, especially before the COVID crisis began, because there wasn't a hyper means of printing money. But now we print money like it's crazy. Anyway, as you can see, the MACD, I drew a trend line from November and I connected it to April. All right. And both of these times, the MACD was very, very high on the SPY. So now, what might be a very, very good thing for the SPY is if the SPY can cross above this level on the MACD in accordance to where the price is right here, right? So if the MACD ends up going much higher, then that would mean that the SPY has comfortably created a base above this level and is now comfortably trading above it. So that's hopefully going to be the goal for an upward move. All right, because if that happens, we can end up trading above this trend line here as well, which will be a very, very good sign. And all that would need to maybe happen is if the MACD crosses above this level as well. And then from here, all the way up here on the MACD, if we were overbought and then go down a bit more, the move might not be as violent, because if we get up all the way over here on the MACD, right? We cross this blue line. The SPY, let me erase this stuff right here real quick. Okay, real quick. So if we're all the way up here on the MACD, right? The SPY accordingly can be either at this trend line or higher, okay? So then when the MACD decides to collapse and once we're very overbought on the MACD, the movement on the SPY doesn't necessarily mean that we'll fall back down to, 400. It'll mean potentially we just have to go and retest this blue trend line once more. That would be very, very bullish. Okay, so we're just watching to see what happens on the SPY with the MACD and whether or not we can continue crossing above. Because right now the MACD, it's flattening out. Same thing with the RSI. They're both flattening out, but we're still making new highs. So that is a very, very good sign on the SPY. Aside from that, there's nothing really else to talk about on the SPY. The IWM, of course, so it was the best indice today. It bounced off of 228.08, which was, you know, this red support line here, which is the 23.6% fib level. It hit a low. It crossed down below just a bit, but we bounced back up very nicely. And essentially, the resistance for tomorrow is going to be 230.50. And that would be the continuation of this trend line here, which is the upper level of this flag. So let's see if we can continue on higher. It looks like the IWM is making a smaller bull flag within this bull flag. So let's see how this plays out on the IWM. The NASDAQ. Okay, so the NASDAQ, obviously we can see that the RSI is overbought. And the last 4 times that the RSI on the NASDAQ was overbought, within, if you had bought puts for 2 to 3 months out, the day that the NASDAQ closed above 70, you would be profitable on the trade. It's a 100% success rate trade, buying puts 2 to 3 months out whenever this happens on the RSI. So let's just see if that is something that can be possible. Obviously, you know, it closed a few days ago, back when it was trading at 353. Right now, it's not a profitable trade. So we need to see how the NASDAQ continues moving. And currently, it's literally just in a very, very violent uptrend because the 30-year yield continues to go up. It looks very, very bullish. We can see that the MACD is now starting to turn upward. Yesterday, it was still down. Today, it's starting to curl upward, and it still has yet to cross above. So the fact that it hasn't even crossed above yet is very, very important. This is the 30-year yield. And yeah, the 30-year yield went up. The 10-year yield obviously went down, right? So those were, and the dollar skyrocketed, and it broke above the recent highs at 91.8. But it didn't end up closing above that. So the dollar looks extremely strong as well. The MACD is still oversold, but now the RSI is getting a bit overbought. Anyway, the dollar and the 30-year yield going up means that the tech sector is still going to be extremely, extremely strong. Okay? And the 10-year yield going down means that the IWM is still going to be weak. All right, so that's something that we just have to continue monitoring. For the time being, that's really it for the NASDAQ. As long as we remain above this trend line, it's going to continue being a very, very bullish move for the NASDAQ. The main level of support is this trend line, which is going to be for tomorrow at 351.77. If we cross below 351.77 tomorrow, I am going to go short with a good percentage of my portfolio, most likely. But yeah, this trend line is just very, very important. The overall macroeconomic climate is favoring the NASDAQ because interest rates don't look like they're going to be increased for another year or two. So because they've taken that into account, it means that companies can borrow and lend money at a less of an interest rate, which means that banks and hedge funds, the ones that are lending money, will make less money. Because if a bank is only making 1% on a loan, that means that there's less money that they're going to be making. And if they increase interest rates, then that means all of the companies in the tech sector, for example, that have to take loans, they have to pay more money for loans. That means that the tech sector would go down, and that means that the banks would go up. So currently, that's why the tech sector is winning and the banks are losing, because of the interest rate conversation and all of the bonds and the dollar. So yeah, there's that for my analysis on the... Oh, sorry. Also with crude oil. Crude oil still holding up very nicely. Look at how It's making new highs. This is great. It's making new highs, but the MACD is still oversold. So that this shows ridiculous strength for crude oil. Overall, as long as crude oil continues to do well, the overall stock market is going to continue doing well. Okay, so there's my analysis for the SPY, QQQ, IWM, and the overall market. Good stuff. Now, let's talk about Bitcoin and the crypto market. So this is a daily chart of Bitcoin, and you know that I've been monitoring this very important green trend line here. Yesterday, we crossed above it. Things looked great. We hit all the way up to 36,600. People were bullish. It looked amazing, right? But then today, we crossed back down below. So what I did was I drew a Fibonacci level from the most recent lows to the most recent highs. And we can see that it bounced very cleanly off of the 0.38.2% Fibonacci level at 34,000. The next two important levels for Bitcoin are going to be the 50% Fib level and the 618% Fib level. So at 333.53 and 32.581. Those are going to be the two next levels of support. Most likely what usually happens when we do create a bull flag is we do retest the 50% Fib level. So I do think we might have a big chance of retesting the 33,000 level, 32,300 level around here. So I do think that that might happen. And if it does, that would give enough time for, this MACD to also cool down a bit, because we are extremely overbought and we're failing at resistance. But when you look at on the SPY, right, we were very overbought, yet we're breaking above resistance this entire time, okay? And that is not the case on Bitcoin, which is why we need to have the MACD cool down a bit. We need price to consolidate a bit for the numbers and everything to average out and become a bit more favorable to the long side. Okay, so for the bullish case, we need it to consolidate here just a little bit. And it actually needs to fall around this area and hold for a few days. That would give enough room and steam for it to continue onward with strength and potentially break this trend line again, and then the big important blue trend line there. All right, but for now, I would not be going long or buying any Bitcoin until we fall down to this area between the 50% and the 38.2% at least. That's where I would start to look for potentially scalping longs. But yeah, so that's really it. We just need to make sure that the MACD cools down a bit on Bitcoin. And obviously, because Bitcoin is, not doing well. Actually, the altcoins, sorry, my bad. The altcoins are actually doing well. Ethereum is doing very well. So that's why a lot of people are saying that, it's altcoin season and a revival of altcoin season. That means that, ETH and a lot of these other coins are going to lead Bitcoin out of the bear market. But if that is the case, then Ethereum needs to cross above 2316 and 2341. If we can cross back above 2341 on Ethereum, but Bitcoin is still trading within this weird range, then very, very likely that Bitcoin will follow Ethereum out of these levels of resistance. But until Ethereum crosses above this level here, that is not even in the question, okay? So those are just two things to take into consideration on the crypto market. And that's honestly really it for the analysis on the crypto market. Now I'm just going to go over the analysis for the stocks you guys wanted me to check out. Starting with Tesla. Tesla has very important trendline support at 676.25. And if we can look at all of this resistance right here above 690 and 691.50. If we can cross above these wicks here, Tesla is going to start flying, because right now the MACD is going lower, but yet we're consolidating in a bullish pattern, which is very, 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 very bullish. So all Tesla really needs to do is, if it crosses above 69.50 with strength, this can start flying all the way back up above 700. So Tesla looks really nice. Apple, of course, had an amazing green day as well. It crossed above its most near-term resistance at 137.07. It failed to close above it, right? But we crossed above it. So now we really just need to close above 137.07 and start to consolidate above it. But, you know, it's extremely bullish. You can still see that we're in this clear uptrend here. The MACD just crossed above now, which is ridiculously bullish. You can see that the MACD was overbought this entire time while it was going up. So this is just abnormal, very, very ridiculous strength on the MACD. That's why, you know, it signaled, you know, oh my god, this is unsustainable movement to the upside, blah blah blah, negative divergence. But, you know, everything is solved with hundreds of billions of dollars being pumped into the market every month. So that's what's happening on Apple at the moment. The level of support for Apple for tomorrow is going to be 136.50. That's going to be the level that remains above the trend line. But if it crosses down below, that would be a good signal for shorts, potentially. All right, Tillery. Tillery obviously was very, very strong as well. What we can do here is we can draw a Fibonacci retracement from the most recent lows to the highs to get the Fibonacci levels. And as we can see, Tillery failed to cross above the 38.2% level at 1936. And it's still holding above 1709, okay? But the most near-term resistance that it needs to cross above is this 50% level here at 1823. So tomorrow, if we can cross above 1823 with strength, that would be a very good sign for Tillery. But what you need to take into consideration is the MACD is still very, very overbought. But the fact that we're still remaining in this, you know, bit of an uptrend here, but overall, from back here, this is a bull flag. Okay, there's many ways to look at this pattern, but let me just go ahead and fix this for you guys here. Okay, so this can still technically be a bull flag here. All right, it's just a much longer drawn out pattern. Okay. So the fact that we're consolidating a bit above, you know, the 618% level, we're green, we're trading above, we bounced off of this level here, looks good. So maybe that might give potential for the MACD to just continue moving upward and then bring this yellow line moving upward as well and really, really shift the momentum of this stock. Okay, so 1823 is an important level of resistance. If we can cross above that, that's very, very bullish. All right, that's what I'm looking at for Tillery. Lots, of course, you know, we still have this very, very important level at 641. We can see that, you know, now we are, this doesn't, I mean, we filled, so we gapped up, right? And then we ended up falling and filling this gap. And now the main level of support, we're currently at it. So we are literally at 520. And 520 is a very, very important level of support. Lots. Otherwise, I mean, it bounced off of it, which is a good sign. But yeah, man, I mean, if 512 break, if this lower trend, 511, if 511 breaks, doesn't look good for lots. We can see that it's, you know, in a downtrend currently. The MACD is oversold as well, so it should be pushing upward. So now today, if 511 does not hold on lots, that is going to be very, very bearish. It should be reversing very shortly, and if it doesn't, then that is a very major warning signal. All right, Alto, it looks like obviously we are in an uptrend here. I drew a Fibonacci level from the most recent lows to the high. We can see that this is a potential bull flag as well. We're currently holding above the 50% level at $6. That's the most near-term support. The MACD is also overbought, and it needs to cool down a bit. So we need to see if we can remain above $6. If not, then it needs to remain above 575. But the two main levels of resistance that it needs to cross above are 625 and 655. Overall, this is a bullish pattern, but we just need to see how it responds and whether it crosses above these levels of resistance or crosses below these levels of support. The MACD does not look good. And the RSI generally, when it crosses down below 50, is also a short-term bearish signal. All right, so that's that on Alto. All right, this is AVTE. I don't know what this is. Yeah, sorry about that. I have no idea. Netflix. Okay, let me take this off the minute chart. Netflix is clearly going bonkers as well. It has very, very major support along this trend line here at 516. But the first level of support is obviously going to be the low above this gap, which is going to be here from 524.56. So 524.56 is a very, very important level of support. If we cross below that, that might be a very, very good opportunity to buy puts for a scalp. We do have a gap all the way back to 520.96. So there's approximately a $4 gap that needs to be filled. So keep your eye on that. And as you know, in the past, gaps do tend to be filled. So, you know, that's just something to be wary of on Netflix. We can see that the MACD is extremely overbought. The RSI is coming out of overbought as well. We gapped up. We were trading outside of the upper level of the B bands. So just overall, lots of topping signals. But as long as we, you know, maintain above 524 and consolidate a bit, that is a very good sign on Netflix. ITRM, obviously, it looks very similar to Netflix of what happened before, right? We gapped up. It needs to remain above the lows here at 224, right? And as long as we can hold above 224, that's a very good sign. But the MACD recently did cross above, obviously, because we gapped up. The RSI is coming out of overbought. And we do have a gap all the way back down to 208. So there is a 20-second gap that needs to be filled here. If this support breaks, then the next major level of support is going to be around 212. Other than that, there's not really much else to talk about. We were trading outside of the upper level of the B band as well, which did signal a bit of a topping formation as well. So yeah, overall, as long as ITRM holds above this near-term 224 support, things should be good, and we can continue going higher and potentially retest 270. TTCF, this is not really what we want to see. We made a bottom here. We had a huge green day, which is a good sign. We gapped up even more, right? But I mean, it's not entirely bad. I mean, because we did gap up and we closed much lower than where we opened. But overall, I mean, we still held above yesterday's high at 2116. So as long as 2116 holds, that is still a very, very good sign for TTCF. Because we did make a very, very extreme move, right? But the only other downside is that we closed below the 20 exponential moving average, which we can see is at 2045. So 2045 needs to, you know, that needs to hold as support, and we need to cross back above that level. Other than that, the most noticeable resistance is going to be today's highs at 2209. Other than that, I mean, the MACD just crossed above. The RSI looks like it's going up above as well. This looks like a giant bull flag. We can see here, right? So, you know, like the 2231 is going to be the 23.6% fib level after this level here. All right, so if we cross above that, consolidate a bit above here, we can end up breaking 2425 soon also. FSY looks very, very bullish. We bounced out of extremely oversold conditions. We were trading outside of the lower level of the B band. We haven't even crossed above the MACD yet. So this looks like a very, very good, it looks very, very strong. But obviously we stopped exactly at the 20 exponential moving average. So that needs to break at 88 cents. If that can break, then we can end up retesting 94, 95 cents. But yeah, other than that, that's really it for FSY. HIPA, it failed to cross above 230. You can see obviously it, you know, now we're very, very oversold, but we need to hold above 193 now. So we crossed below the 38.2% fib, but now the 50% fib, we need to hold above 193. If we don't hold above 193, then we can retest all the way back down here at 170 for HIPA. Wow. WOW. They made a new all-time high today. The MACD is extremely overbought now. The RSI is extremely overbought. We gapped up clearly, right? So let me look at this on the 1 hour chart. So obviously the most near-term support, if we cross below 1976, then that would be a very, very good opportunity to short below this level for a filling of the gap to 1837. So it would be over a dollar point move. You could short if it crosses below this level. But now if we cross above 2094 on WOW, that would be a very good buying opportunity for, you know, an upside scalp for calls for WOW. So NVA, it looks very, very, very similar to Apple in that the MACD was overbought for quite some time, yet we continued moving upward. And if you look at Apple, the MACD was overbought for quite some time, yet we continued moving upward, right? So let's go back to NVA. Obviously, it looks very, very similar. The RSI is overbought. The MACD looks like it's going to catch up and go down below this yellow line, yet we are still making new highs. So the most important level of support, if we do start falling, is going to be 377 on NVA. We can also see, you know, there's lots of resistance back here. So the next key level of resistance is going to be at 409, and then back here at 420 for NVA. Obviously, once we cross above $4, right? The mental, you know, the barrier. So that would be that on NVA. Amazon, we can see Amazon is extremely overbought on the MACD. So whereas Apple and these other companies, they're not as overbought, Amazon is much more overbought. And this is a very bullish pattern. We consolidated in a very bullish way. So whereas Apple, it didn't consolidate as much, Amazon did. So Amazon held support very, very well. It looks like it created a new bit of an uptrend here. We need it to cross above 34.64. And then obviously today's high at 34.71. If we can do that and cross above 34.71, that might be a very good scalping opportunity. Overall on Amazon, it looks, I mean, overall this looks very, very bullish still. So this just looks very, very bullish. Overall, the tech sector looks very, very bullish. Apple looks bullish. The 30-year yield, all of those other factors that I talked about in the beginning of the video makes Amazon very, very bullish as well. So TSM, obviously TSM is a very, very good company as well. You can see that this is a bull flag from the most, I'll go ahead and draw this from here. So it bounced and held the 618% fib level, which is a bullish sign. We bounced out of that. This was a very, very good buy opportunity because we were trading outside of the lower level of the B band. We were sitting on the 0.618 fib level, and we were extremely oversold on the MACD. So there were three very, very good reasons to buy into TSM. That would have been a very, very high quality trade. But now we are trading and consolidating above the 23.6% fib level at 118.67. So 118.67 needs to remain support and it needs to hold. But something to take into consideration is that the MACD is very, very overbought. So it might be bad for it to cross above anytime soon. Maybe the MACD needs to even out a bit. But regardless, if 118.67 holds, then 122 can definitely break. And of course, if 121 breaks, that can be a very good sign that 122 can also break to the upside. I mean, yeah, so Teladoc, it had a red day, but obviously, look at how overextended we were outside of the upper level of the B band. Having one day where we do return inside of the standard deviation level for the B bands is completely normal. The MACD, the RSI fell pretty heavily, but the MACD did not. So that can actually signal that there's a lot more downside potential on Teladoc. So I would be careful about going long on Teladoc until maybe around 163. So if we can trade back down to 163, I'd feel much more comfortable buying into Teladoc. Not anything right now. Obviously, you know, the resistance levels are going to be right here at 167.67, and then, you know, up here at 170 for Teladoc. So coin, it has a lot to do with how Bitcoin is trading, and obviously, you know, doing analysis on coin, where I think that it might go, blah, blah, blah. It all really depends on how Bitcoin is trading. So it could potentially go back up to 262 if Bitcoin crosses above this trend line here at 35. If Bitcoin crosses above 36,000, coin can potentially go back up and cross 260 again. So I hope I helped. There's my analysis for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.